Today I'm sharing with you a really comfy pull-on pant that you can make with stretch wovens. My preferred fabric is stretch denim, which makes these stretch jeans. No fly, just pull up, really comfortable, lots of options in this pattern, and you'll see a lot of the sewing as well. Stay tuned. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from Lifting Pins and Needles. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today is about jeans sewing. Although the pattern I'm going to share with you is not just for jeans, you know, you can make this pattern with other types of stretch wovens. But I like stretch denim. I have a lot of it in my stash and I like using it up. You can see it in the tree. The Metro pull-on pants is a pattern that was released by Sinclair Patterns, I believe back in April. And about Sinclair Patterns, they are having a mid-year sale. All the patterns in the site are 20% off. If you've been looking at some that you like, it's a really nice chance to get them when they're on sale. And this sale ends the 5th of July. When you look at the prices, you will get the discount at checkout. I will leave you my affiliate link down below. I have sewn quite a few patterns already. I've always loved them. I think that the height files are gold for feet. You know, just makes it a little bit easier because you don't need to worry that much about length adjustments. Although there's always pattern adjustments that you need to make to customize the fit to your body, I think it's a little bit less, and I've been really successful with the toe file. Today is about the Metro pull-on pants. These pants are designed to be fitted at the waist, the hips and the thighs, and then at the knees you have a little bit more space, and you can choose between two options from the knee down. One is just a straight leg, and that's what I've chosen, and the other one is a boot cut, so it's slightly wider. It's not a skinny jean at all, but I like the straight leg because I think it's the classic type of pant that you can always wear. It's not like they're on trend or they're not on trend. I think you can just always wear a nice fitting straight leg pant. I've mentioned it's a pull-on pant, so you have a lined curved waistband. So you just pull them up over your hips. And for this waistband, there's two options, which I think is genius. Although the second option, I wouldn't really need it, but I think it would help a lot of people. So the first type of waistband is a regular curved waistband. You know, a front and a back. It's just straight and plain on the front and the back with a curve. You have an outer waistband and an inner waistband. That is the regular one, and that's the one I can use, and I don't have a problem with it. But I have seen this discussion before with pull-on pants for people that have a larger difference between the waist and the hip. So there is a different type of waistband designed, and you have a hard time getting these pull-on pants to fit you right, because the waist needs to be smaller, but then it might not fit over your hips. You have a waistband that's also curved but has an overlap in the front with buttons. It is still sewn onto the pant. There is no zipper, but you can unbutton that, and because the waistband is nice and wide, you will have an open area that will help you get over the hips and then have a really nicely fitted waist. So I think if you are someone that has problems with this, because you have maybe 2 or 3 size difference between your waist and the hips in a pattern, I think this option would help you a lot. In my case, I don't really need this option. I have a size 16 for both my waist and my hips. I can pull this up over my hips with the regular waistband. There is a fake fly there that you can sew on if you want to. It's all optional. And then you have features like the curved pockets in the front, the classic style, and I've shown you a few videos ago a tutorial really detailed of how to sew a curved pocket like this. So you will find that on the front. It's also optional. You can opt to not put that on there as well. At the back, like regular jeans do, you'll have a yoke piece and you'll have patch pockets there. No fuss, it's easier to sew. Really comfy to wear. You just pull them up, and the fake fly can make it look a little bit more realistic, and it looks like you're wearing jeans. If you have a more of a straighter figure where the difference between the waist and the hips is not that much, you might want to put the belt loops that are there as an option so you can wear a belt. I've never needed a belt to hold my pants up because my hips sort of hold my pants up, but I know for more athletic figures or apple shape that there's just a more straighter silhouette. I think the belt can really help you keep your pants up. So you have instructions there for belt loops. For the fabrics you need stretch wovens that will stretch only 15 to 20% horizontally, no vertical stretch. I really think that keeping the low stretch is important for the fit. You do have some negative ease here. You want this to be snug. If you find some stretch denim, for example, that stretches more, 40, 50%, you're going to end up with really baggy pants and the fit is just not going to be right. I know these types of pants always have a recommendation of the stretch that they want you to use, and I think it's really important to follow that. 15 to 20% is not much. If you have a 4-inch piece of fabric and you want to stretch it a little, for it to stretch 15 to 20%, it'll stretch less than an inch. So that is the amount you want. When you're looking at fabric composition, if you're buying online, it needs to have at least 2 to 5% spandex. So you might find some fabrics that are sold as stretch wovens that only have 1% spandex. Those types of fabrics will usually just stretch up to 10%. So if you wanted to make these pants with that type of fabric, you might end up with really, really tight pants. And if you find fabrics have more than 5, you might end up with pants that are really, really baggy, really loose. So just take your time to choose your fabric correctly. Now you can also use really stable knits like ponte, double knits, you know, those heavier knits that don't stretch that much. Just make sure that it doesn't stretch more than 20% and you should be okay. I would prefer to sew it with a stretch woven 100%. Maybe it's also due to the fact that it's hard for me to find really good quality ponte roma, so it's not a fabric that I'm really fond of or look forward to sewing, because I've had mixed experiences with it and mixed types of qualities that I've found, whereas I can really be more confident in the quality of stretch denim, for example, for these styles. So that's why I just go to the stretch denim. It's the best. Also, you can find some stretch cotton satins, but I find that over time these can lose recovery and you can end up with a little bit of a baggy bottom, baggy knees, you know. So just be careful. You can find some stretch cotton twills sometimes that are really good quality and nice and firm. Bengaline could also be a good fabric if you want to try. The sizes are from 0 to 30, and as always you will have height files. See how tall you are and see if you want to choose the petite, the regular or the tall file. The drafting will be totally different for a height difference, and you will have different inseam lengths, of course, for these different height files. The boot cut jean, when you look at the pattern piece, is a little longer than the straight leg jean. You have to choose there what you want. You will see the difference, and don't think it's wrong, it's all correct. As I mentioned, there is negative ease in this pattern. That's why you need a stretch woven. You cannot make this with fabric that does not stretch. At the hips, you have about 1.5 inches of negative ease, which is amazing. That is what makes pants like these fit really well. And at the waist, it'll be about 1 to 1.5 inches of negative ease as well. So it'll be nice and snug, it'll be nice and comfy, and that's why you have the stretch woven there. I really like fitted pants like this that have negative ease. I would not want to make pants out of a stretch woven that have ease at the hips. You just end up with really baggy pants, and it's not a good look in my opinion. I've chosen the 16 tall file. I made a muslin. I have a whole process that I filmed that I'm sharing on Patreon. So if you have access to my exclusive content on Patreon, you can see what my process for fitting was, how my muslin looks, how I went back and forth from the muslin to the pattern. I did end up needing to make some rise adjustments that were varied during this fitting process. And at the front, I added 1/4 inch. You can see the diagram here. All the way across the front, 1/4 inch. You might think it's silly to adjust that little, but for me it was worth it. At the back, only at the center back, I've added 3/4 inch, tapering to 1/4 inch on the side seam. So it's like a little wedge, and that's how I can get the side seams to match and fit correctly. And I added 1/4 inch to the inner thigh on the back piece. You can see there a diagonal line. That is all I needed, and I went back and forth with my muslin, really happy that I was going to get a really good fit. And even if I'm sewing the tall file, I still needed to make some length adjustments on the rise, and that's just to fit my individual body. I have a super long rise. My waist is up here. I mean, I'm always going to need to tweak a little bit. I don't ever expect pants to fit me straight out of the packet, and I always need to do something to the rise, either the front or the back. Just something always needs to be done, and I'm fine with that. I'm cool with that, and I hope you can accept that it is also fine if you need to do that, because it's just part of the process, and part of getting a pattern to fit you correctly is customizing it to your body. There's no way any pattern maker can custom design something for you by distance with some magical powers, you know. They do their best to fit a standard amount of sizes and shapes and bodies, you know, but there will always be individual differences that you can customize. I didn't need to add any length to the legs. That's fine. I'm making the tall file, and the original length of the pants fit me really, really well. In Up Close and So Personal, you'll see a lot of the sewing. I will have some alternative methods that you can try if you want to with the pockets, the curved pockets. You can sew them the traditional way. You can look at the video tutorial I already have on the channel about that if you don't want to make any changes. But if you want to have some fun, I'm showing you an alternative method to sew the curved pockets. I'm also going to be showing you how I put the back leg together, the yoke, some top stitching, and I'm going to be focusing a lot on the waistband. I'm going to show you how to put the waistband that overlaps. Even though I'm not going to sew it, I'm going to show you step by step how to do it. It's really cool. And then I'll also show you the regular waistband sewn in an alternative way as well. So let's see. These are the two pieces for the pocket lining and then the pocket facing. So you're supposed to cut 2 of each. This one would be cut out of the main fabric, and this other one you can cut it out of a lightweight woven. I'm not going to do that. I think using that large amount of main fabric on the jeans, it can get a little bit bulky. So what I've done is just put them on top of each other. They have the same shape. I drew a line there on the pocket opening. Below that line, you see a dotted one that's 5/8 of an inch below, because this is actually how it's going to end up being after it's sewn, you know, the seam allowance. And then from there, I just eyeballed a line maybe about 1.5 inches below that. This is the area that I want to create a different pattern piece to cut out of the main fabric. And this is what I have here. I just traced it, nothing special. I copied the grain line as well so I can cut it properly. I'm going to cut a piece of denim in this fabric and just sew it onto the pocket bag. And then for both of these, I'm going to use a really lightweight fabric. I've done this before with other pants. You basically just serge this curved edge, put it on top, and then sew it on the edge, and then that just becomes part of it. The other change I'm going to do to the pocket is that instead of cutting 2 pieces, I'm just going to cut 1. So put them there together. There's going to be a seam there. I've put my pins. It's 5/8 of an inch. And now I'm just going to open it like this. And this is the piece that I'm going to cut out of another fabric. Extend it like this, and then when I'm constructing, I won't have to sew this seam. I'll just have to fold it, and it'll be less bulky inside. And this is where I'm going to sew that main fabric to. I've shown this type of pocket before. I really like doing this modification to avoid having that seam right there. Just for fun, I've decided to transform the 2 pocket pieces into one. So I have the pocket facing on the left and the pocket bag on the right, and I'm going to cut them both out of a lightweight woven fabric. Where the seam would be, I have pinned it, thus eliminating it, and then I will just cut one whole piece. When this is finished inside, it will have a fold there instead of a seam, and it makes it so much more comfortable. Here you can see how the piece looks when it's being cut out. Now you're supposed to cut the pocket bag out of the main fabric, because that is the area that will be behind the pocket opening and it will complete the hip area. But because I've cut my piece entirely out of a contrast fabric, I've created a little piece that will be sewn onto this area. Here you can see that I'm stabilizing the pocket openings on the wrong side of the fabric and just fusing on a narrow strip of interfacing. This will make sure that over time this doesn't stretch. I have already sewn the pocket on. Of course, I made a muslin beforehand and I know where to place that. And now I've got one back leg pinned with one yoke. There are notches along the edge that help you match those up. The seam allowance on this pattern is 5/8 of an inch, and I'm just sewing that. Then you would serge it, press it down, and I'm top stitching everything in parallel rows, one on the edge, and then the second row is at 1/4 of an inch. I am using different presser feet for this because it just turns out so neat. After repeating the same for both back legs and both yoke pieces, I have attached those together and I'm going to sew the back crotch curve. Same seam allowance, 5/8. I will serge that. I've pressed the seam towards the left, and I'm also doing the double row of top stitching, one on the very edge and one at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I'm using an actual jean top stitching thread in a gray color. I think it matches this type of denim. It's going to look really pretty. Now coming back to these pockets, I am now sewing that piece of denim onto the area that would have been the pocket bag, so that what you see behind the pocket entrance will actually be the same type of denim. So I'm just top stitching that onto the fabric. I've got my front leg fabric right sides up, and I'm going to place this pocket opening wrong sides to right sides, matching the pocket opening. I'm going to pin that along there and sew it. I'm going to use a smaller seam allowance, just 3/8 here, making sure I'm sewing on top of that interfacing I had fused on previously. Then I'm going to trim away some seam allowance. You never want more than 1/4 of an inch there, and because it is curved, you need to do some snips as always. Then you are going to turn this pocket piece to the inside and understitch. The seam allowance is pushed towards the pocket piece, so underneath the print fabric, and that will keep that inside. It is a contrast fabric and you don't want that to be seen. and then I'm going to pin this curve and top stitch. I'm doing first the top stitching at 1/4 inch seam allowance with my presser foot. That's going to help it be super neat, and then I'm doing the one on the edge, and that gives me 2 rows of top stitching on the pocket entrance as well. Now that's one leg, and I'll repeat for the other. Now what you do inside is just fold this pocket onto itself. You'll see that instead of a seam, you just have a fold, and you just align everything on the side seams, make sure everything matches, and you'll have a pocket that is made out of just one piece. It has a fold there, and you need to align that onto the waist area and onto the side seam. See the fold there? So much more comfortable than having a seam, and it's so easy to do. You can see that the side seams of the pockets match, and there's a slight curve at the bottom. I've sewn the bottom of the pocket, you can see there, and I've serged it, and now I've pinned it along the side seam right there and along the waistline. I'm going to just baste that together to make it be one piece. You can see the pocket entrance there, the piece of denim. Now that the pockets are done, we can align both front legs, and we can sew the front crotch curve. There is that extra fabric there that's going to be for the fake fly, and you just sew this at 5/8 seam allowance, and then you need to serge this together. It is a little bit tricky because there's a curved area. Now I am top stitching this front crotch curve. As you can see, you can choose what side you want to put the excess for that fake zipper, whichever side you like. I've decided to put it that way, and I've drawn what I want to top stitch to hold that down, and this is just decorative. It serves absolutely no purpose other than making it look like there is a fly there, because these are pull-on jeans, and I'm doing a double row of top stitching right there. I had a bit of extra fabric, so I decided to cut the waistband with the buttons just to show you how it comes together in general, although it's not the version I'm going to use. For that one, you cut 2 sets of the front piece, and you have 2 pairs, obviously. That's why you have 2 of these mirrored images, 4 of them, and at the center front you have a line. You have to mark that on all of them, because later on you're going to be trimming some of those away. You need 2 pairs of each, because one is the inner layer, one is the outer layer of the waistband. And then for the back, which is just cut on the fold, you need 2. One will be the inner layer, one will be the outer layer. If you have the appropriate stretch interfacing that stretches as much as your fabric does, then you can interface the outer layer. In my case, I'm not going to be interfacing because my stretch interfacing stretches very little. It would actually compromise the stretch properties of my fabric, so I'm not going to interface. And the pattern even says that if you don't have the right interfacing, to just not do it. I'm going to take 1 pair of each of these and put it on top of these. So this will be one of the waistbands, this will be the other, the inner or the outer. On this denim here, I have a little bit of a defect in the center, and there's this thing that wouldn't come off, so I'm calling this the inner waistband just because of those defects. So basically you would just align these right sides together. The back has a series of notches there that are marked on the top and bottom edge. I drew a little arrow to remind me that this is the top, so I'm just going to place these side seams right sides together like this, like that, and the same with the other one. On the front you also have notches on the bottom and on the top. Okay, I've got the side seams pinned. So this bottom one has that white defect that you can see there will be my inner waistband, and my outer waistband will be this one. We are going to turn them so that the seams are inside. I don't have seams, I just have pins. So let's just flip them like this so that all this is on the inside and you have your waistbands like this. It's really important to do this so you don't get confused of what you need to trim. This is the inner waistband, the one that has a defect on the denim, as you can see there. This is my left hand. This is my right hand. I'll put left and right on the screen. It's just exactly like you're looking down. On the inner waistband that you have at the bottom, take the left side here with your left hand, and in there you'll see a line. Remember I said there were lines? This is the line that you need to trim away here. For the outer waistband, the one that you might have interfaced, take your right hand and take the right side of this waistband and trim this one away. You also see a line in there. That's why it was important to mark the lines everywhere. Done. On the inner waistband, we cut away the left side. On the outer waistband, we cut away the right side. And now we can align these together. So I'm just going to put this one like that, put them right sides together. Voila. This is how you end up with a longer waistband. Both of them are the same. and on the other front, this one's shorter. You'll sew the short ends, pivot, come across the top to the other side, pivot, and then down the other short end and flip it. You would do the understitching, everything else that I'm going to show you with the other waistband, but in the end you end up with an overlapped area here. The overlap is done before sewing the waistband on the round of the jeans. If I was going to do this, I would interface a small area here where I was planning to do those buttonholes, but I can't interface the whole thing because my stretch interfacing just does not stretch that much that is required for a waistband like this. I'm going to do the regular waistband because I've never had an issue with those types of waistbands, and my waist and hips have the same size for this pattern. So I have the front there that was cut on the fold, the back that was cut on the fold. You essentially just put them right sides together, sew the side seams. Now for my inner waistband, denim is a little heavier and just feels a bit stronger. I feel it's going to give me a little bit more support. Also considering that I'm not going to be interfacing any of these. So I think this one being inside is going to help me. And you won't see it, it is very dark navy. It is nice and soft to the skin as well. So I wouldn't mind having this next to my skin. So this one's already been sewn. So it's just basically having two round waistbands, then meeting them. I'll put that one inside there once I've got it on the round and sew it together on the top. Trim away, snip, because there are some curves, and then I'll be understitching this seam on the top so that this won't show. If your waistband, you were concerned, you know, you could put an elastic in here on the seam, and I've done that before with other waistbands. But because this one is so nice and strong, I don't think I'm going to need it, so I'm not going to be doing that. This is the waistband I had already sewn that I used on my muslin, and I've just sewn the side seams here. So I'm going to put this inside. Look at this seam. They're going to be right sides together there, matching the front to the back. I had marked an arrow here going up, and on my other waistband as well going up. It's really easy to get confused, so make sure you have the arrows going up, and the top edges of the waistband are what are going to be sewn on. For this seam at the waist, I'm using a not so shallow zigzag, so it's basically a small zigzag because I want that to stretch. A shallow zigzag is good for other types of seams that don't need that much stretch, so that's why the width of my zigzag is going to be a little bit bigger, although the stitch length is going to stay at 2.5. If you wanted some extra support up here, you could use a 3/8 elastic and put it here and sew it on while you sew this. You cut your elastic a little bit smaller than the circumference here on the top. This is how my not so shallow zigzag look. It's still a small zigzag and it will allow more stretch than the other one. And it'll still be a flat seam. I mean, it's not going to be different on the outside. Now I'm going to trim away some seam allowance. Now I'm going to open this and understitch the seam allowance towards the inner layer. My inner layer is the navy one. I don't want it to be seen, so I'll push the seam allowance that way. And then I'm going to use the same zigzag I used to sew these to understitch. I won't be understitching with a straight stitch this time. Here is my completed waistband. I've given it a good press, tidied it up. Now, if you want to follow instructions, all you need to do now is slide your pants inside the waistband, obviously meeting the front waistband to the front of the jeans, and having your outer layer right sides together with the jeans. And then you would just go ahead and pin it on the round, sew it and serge it. That's the easy way to do it. But I want to go and do an extra step, an alternative method that I think is a little less bulky. And I'm going to line up and sew only the outer layer to the pants. I'm not going to be sewing the inner layer on it yet, because once I've got it flipped under, I'm going to serge the edge and then stitch in the ditch right there. I find it turns out a little bit flatter on the front and comfortable to wear. So I'll take my outer waistband and meet it here at the side seams and just pin on the round and sew. What I'm doing now is only going to work with this type of waistband. If you're doing the overlapped one with the buttons, then you can't do this. You just need to sew it normally. I'm also using a zigzag stitch on this one. I'm also going to trim away some seam allowance. I'm going to go and press the seam up towards the waistband, and then this inner waistband will get flipped to the inside like that. I'm going to trim it shorter. You can see that 5/8 of an inch right there is a bit too much, so I'm going to trim away about 1/4 of an inch from this. It's just too wide. Serge the edge, and then I can top stitch along the edge of the waistband while catching the inner waistband over here. I haven't made up my mind if I'm going to edge stitch or stitch in the ditch. I trimmed away about 1/4 of an inch from this inner waistband just to avoid bulk inside. It's not necessary for it to be that long with this method. And now I'm just going to serge the edges. This is how it looks inside. It's been serged. It covers the seam that's been pressed going up. And when I sew here on the edge, because I've decided to edge stitch, you can see where my pin's going to hit. And I'll have that much left over there. So I think this ends up being flatter. I'm going to use the same top stitching thread I've used throughout. And I'll use a shallow zigzag. It'll still allow stretch, but it won't be a total straight stitch right here. That's how it's going to look, and it's catching it here on the back. This covers the seam, so there's nothing raw in here. Here are my Metro jeans. I really love the fabric. It's a really light blue, and if you look up closer, it's got this lovely texture. So nice. I've got grey top stitching, curved pockets. You saw that I sewed a little piece there, and you saw how I did that to complete this hip area, but all inside I have a really lightweight stretch woven fabric in there. On the inside it feels soft and fresh on my skin. It's just very nice to have a fabric like that inside. And the curved waistband is there, the fake fly, the front crotch curve, the back, patch pockets. You can see this template right there, it came with the pattern. I didn't show anything about patch pockets, but I have shown that before. I always determine where I want to position them on my muslin, and mine are a little higher, almost reaching the yoke, as you can see, but not at the yoke, so that's good. And I have 2 rows of top stitching everywhere, top stitching right there. You can see that these were done with a really shallow zigzag, so I can still stretch these over my hips and the seams are not going to pop, so it'll be safe, it'll be fine. The legs, I have top stitched the inseam right there, and I have a hem right there, so not much to show actually. They're just your classic style of pull-on pant that looks exactly like jeans. So comfortable. You can see my pockets inside there have the pretty print on the outside, and that's why I did it like I've shown you. So pretty, so light. It is also a type of stretch woven, if you can see, look. It feels so soft on the skin. I would really recommend, if you have a piece of another denim that's heavier and stronger than your main denim, to use it on the inside, because it contributes to giving the waistband some strength. So nice, it feels so good on, so soft, and you know, it'll stretch and recover. I can pull these up and they'll be snug against my body. Now if you're worried that, you know, you might need to be even more snug, you can put an elastic on the top, which I didn't do. I really didn't think I needed to do that because the waistband is so firm. Very nice. I'm glad I went through the fitting process, and I can have another pair of pants that I can make up when I have the right type of denim. I'd like to make a black pair. So happy to share. Let's see how this one looks. These are my Metro pull-on pants in a stretch denim, size 16 tall file. No adjustments made to the length of the legs, just a few adjustments to the right. The waistband is super snug and super comfortable. I always wear my tops tucked out because that's how I'm comfortable. Up closer you can see the fit on the thighs is nice and snug, then at the knees you have more space. There's my tummy, my fake fly right there that no one's gonna see. That's how wide the waistband is. Here is my curved pocket. Super comfortable. You can put a lot of things in the pocket. I'm happy with the fit at the front rise. It's all good. And at the back also, it's reaching my waist. The patch pockets are there, very pretty. Just your classic pants with a great fit, super comfortable. I know these are the type I'll be happy to wear all day and be super content, even travel on a plane with and not be uncomfortable. So nice, really love making them, and I think they're a great fit. Hope you give the Metro pull-on pants a go. It's such a fun project to make, so straightforward, you know, super classic, something that's going to fit you really well, that's going to be so comfortable and that you're going to actually wear a lot. Always worthwhile to take your time to make it yourself, I think. Remember, the Metro pants and all the other patterns are 20% off until the 5th of July. Don't miss the chance to get your favorite patterns for a little bit less. If you'd like to support my work without it costing you anything, you can use my affiliate link that is always in the description box and make a little commission from there. Thank you so much if you do use it. Now, if you think I'm done with pants, I'm not, because the next video will also be about pants, but knit pants, you know, that stretch horizontally and vertically, the ones that feel like pajamas, but they're not. So keep your eyes open for that next video that is also pants. See you soon. Bye.